Today we are discussing all of the Marvel comics released with a cover date of May 1963. We're going to learn some history. We're also going to learn about the rarity and the value of these comics. How in demand are they? And compare them to each other just to see which books are undervalued and which are overlooked gems. Starting with our list, we'll see that there are 12 comics that Marvel released this month. 7 of them are superhero related, starting with Amazing Spider-Man number 2. This is the 49th Silver Age superhero comic published by Marvel. It's the first appearance of the Vulture and the Terrible Tinkerer, and it is the 3rd appearance ever of Spider-Man. It's the number 5 most valuable first appearance Silver Age 1963 release comic from Marvel, and the print run originally was estimated at 175,000 copies. Looking on the CGC census, we can see there's now 1,800 copies graded in all conditions, but the book is super hard to find in ultra high grade. Only 5 copies graded 9.6 or higher, and Heritage has now sold over 400 copies in the last 2 decades. Here's the classic cover of Spider-Man and the Vulture up in the sky. In the Overstreet annual price guide, we've got the amounts for all grades for the last 16 years. We can see the book is not a huge mover overall, but it's really started gaining in the last few years again. It's not quite doubled in this time period in low grade, and in high grade it's gone up about 2.5 times. On the CGC census, we can see there is one 9.8 copy existing in the world, and there is a UK price variant. 28 copies of that have been graded. The next book that came out this month from Marvel is Fantastic Four number 14. And this book's quite unique for a number of reasons. So let's go look in depth at it. It was the 50th Silver Age superhero comic published by Marvel, so it's sort of a landmark as they're starting to build their empire. And it's got a Submariner cover with the regular Fantastic Four gang, 12-cent cover. And this is the 2nd appearance of Puppet Master, and it features a Invisible Girl bondage cover by Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko. A lot scarcer on the CGC census. Only 551 copies have been graded in the last 2 decades. A little more common in super high grade, 11 copies existing, 9.6 or better. Heritage has now sold over 200. In the Overstreet price guide, the book has not doubled in the last 15 years in low grade, but in high grade has gone up about 2.5 times again. These are the raw prices for the annual price guide. And on the census, there are 3 9.8s. Only 4 copies graded in total of the UK price variant. Next on our list of comics released this month, Journey into Mystery number 92. This is now Thor's monthly series, but it originally was a sci-fi title, which they kept the title going. It is the 10th appearance of Thor, and Loki also appears on this cover, done by Jack Kirby, and there's a backup feature with Steve Ditko art. Only 254 copies in total graded, and 6 9.6 or higher. Heritage 75 copies. On the Overstreet price guide, we can see the book has doubled in low grades, and more impressively, it's gone up 3.5 times in near mint over this time period. Of course, if you want up-to-date sales stats, check out eBay and Heritage to see how raw copies are selling, and use the gpanalysis.com website to see how the graded copies are doing. You'll see a lot of surprisingly high prices. And on the census again, no 9.8s of this book at all. None. But there are 6 9.6s. Another key book that came out this month in the superhero genre, though at the time it wasn't. It was considered a war title, but of course it's been put into the Marvel Universe over time. This is the biggest book of the month. It is Sgt Fury and his Howling Commandos number 1. Of course, war comics were selling big at this time still. Superheroes were not the only thing that was popular at this time. In fact, you could say superheroes were not the most popular genre in the early 1960s. So not only is it the first appearance of the Nick Fury character, who would later become part of the superhero universe, it's got a Jack Kirby cover art. Classic cover. You can tell it's Jack Kirby. He draws his faces in a distinct way. This was a very popular series for Marvel. It ran 18 years. And it's the 6th most valuable first appearance comic of the year from Marvel. Print run estimated at 200,000 copies. This book has really been picking up steam in just the last few years. 809 copies graded, 0 copies graded 9.6 or higher. So that's something to really note. There are no 9.8s and no 9.6s either. Heritage has sold 300 copies now. In the Overstreet Price Guide, this book was overlooked for a long time as sort of being the least important Marvel book of the early 60s. But now that it ties into the superhero world, of course, it seems more important historically. And it's almost tripled in low grade. But in high grade, it's gone up 700%. And again, those graded copies are really hot right now. On the census, the highest grade, there are 7 9.4 copies out there, and there are 13 copies graded of the UK price variant of this issue. And of course, this is a major valuable book now. Next on our list is Strange Tales 108. This is one of the less popular Marvel superhero titles of 1963. It features the Human Torch. This was his monthly series. Here again he fights or teams up with the Fantastic Four, which is his regular team. So again, this month the Human Torch is featured in 2 different titles. He was sort of Marvel's big name at this time. Jack Kirby cover. Only 157 copies graded period, and only 2 9.6 or higher. Heritage has not sold many of these either. This is not considered a major key since it's just the 8th solo story of the Human Torch. And again, in low grade in the Overstreet Price Guide, very little movement. High grade, it has tripled. And on the census, there's only 1 9.8 and 1 9.6. Next on our list, this is a way bigger book for the month. Tales of Suspense, number 41. What makes this book so important? It is the 3rd appearance ever of Iron Man. It features a Jack Kirby cover art. Very nice cover. And what else can we tell you? 507 copies graded. That's actually not a lot for being such an early appearance of such a major character. Only 6 super high grade copies. Heritage sales are starting to pick up. A little bit more demand for this book. Still not moving too fast. It's not even doubled in the last 16 years, raw and low grade. But in high grade, it's gone up about 2.5 times. On the census, there are 2 9.8s and 5 copies total graded of all conditions for the UK price variant. And we have Tales to Astonish, number 43, also out with a cover date of May 1963. This is the 10th appearance of Ant-Man. Features a Jack Kirby cover and an Ant-Man backup story, Don Heck. And also Steve Ditko and Larry Lieber worked on this book. 172 copies graded, which is not very many. There's only 5 super high grade copies. Heritage has only sold 45. Again, being a 10th appearance, not considered a major key, so not too many copies graded. In the Overstreet Annual Price Guide, we can see the book has not quite doubled over the years, but it has gone up 2.5 times in high grade raw. There are 3 9.8 copies. Now let's do a comparison of all these books and how they stack up on the CGC census for the high grade copies and just how many grades in general. You can tell which books are considered keys by collectors and dealers by how many copies get graded. So the book with the most copies graded by far is Amazing Spider-Man number 2. So that means probably it's the most popular book on the list. It may be the most common as well because, of course, Amazing Spider-Man is the most highly collected Marvel series ever, and therefore collectors have been hoarding up copies as much as they could find them ever since the 60s. But there is only 1 9.8. Looking at some of the other interesting things to note, the rarest book on the list is The Strange Tales 108 with only 157 copies graded, and there's 1 9.8. But probably the most interesting facts of the list were the fact that Sgt Fury has no 9.8s and no 9.6s. So 9.4 is the best you're going to get. Lots of interest in this book, though. So there's 809 copies graded, which is quite a few compared to the other books on this list. And what else can we point out to, which is quite interesting? The Journey into Mystery 92, also remember, did not have a 9.8 at all. Just to show you how these books stack up against other books that have less demand, Love Romances 105 was one of the girls' romance titles that Marvel put out that month from Stan Lee. Only 2 copies graded in any condition, and the highest being an 8. So, it's interesting when you compare that. What was selling for Marvel? Obviously, superheroes are really starting to become Stan Lee's focus, and sales are definitely growing for Marvel in 1963 because they've created more and more cool characters. But yet, almost half of the content from Marvel includes Kid Cold Outlaw and Two Gun Kid, 2 Western titles. We've got Love Romances and Millie the Model, 2 titles for the girls. And then we've got the Sgt Fury as well. Oh, and that 3rd Western I missed. Gunsmoke Western also. So 3 Westerns. So that's something to take note. Now maybe Stan Lee just really liked to write those and Jack Kirby liked to draw them. But I think the point was Westerns were still a huge thing at this time. And so, of course, Marvel, Stan Lee, they're going after all the genres that they think they can cash in and make some money on. I'd like to thank you for watching this. Of course, I'm going through the history of Marvel's Silver Age month by month. So please subscribe to this video. Let your friends know about this. You can learn a lot of comic history here, but you also get to learn about the values, the movement they're making, and just how much demand and how rare these books all are. You can learn more about collecting comics and comic history at my website, terryhawkness.com, and also at comicbookinvest.com, which is the website for CBSI. Thanks for watching.